Zoning Board of Adjustment, come to order this 7th day of September 2023. The time is 9:30. I mean 6:37. Sorry. Roll call.
How'd it go?
Ken Torrey. Raymond Mass.
Here.
Eileen Hogan.
Here.
Ken Euro.
Here.
Sharon Lee. Here. Vincent Light.
Here.
Paul Canio.
Here.
Anna Cruz.
Here.
Amanda Doremus. Eugene Horowitz.
Here.
Chris Havens.
Here.
Okay, adequate notice of this meeting has been posted in Borough Hall, filed with the Borough Clerk, and mailed to the Asbury Park Press, Two River Times, and the Star Ledger. This meeting is being tape recorded, and in the event the applicant uses the services of a court reporter to transcribe the tapes, the board requires a copy of the transcript. We will break at about 8 p.m. for deliberation of testimony heard thus far in the conference room on the first floor. The public is invited to attend, however, discussion between board members and the public is not permitted at that time. No new cases will be heard after 9 p.m. Recommend zoning board of adjustments maintain a policy cutoff hour of 9:30 for its hearings. Any applicant not heard this evening will be carried over to the next scheduled meeting. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I don't see any non-agenda items. First thing we have is meeting minutes. For the meeting minutes on August 17th. Make a motion. Somebody make a motion to approve. I will. Yes, second.
I'll second.
I think there were some comments.
I actually had gone through the minutes from July 17th and saw some corrections that needed to be made. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. The headline says July 17th, but the meeting was on July 20th. The first line also says July 17th, but it was the 20th. There were two just typos. Ann Torrey had S on her name. I was noted as present at that meeting and I was not. And I was noted as having been sworn in, and I was not. That's it. My OCD stuff.
No, that's very good. And we love when members read the minutes. And so, Mr. Chairman, when it gets to the vote, we can vote to approve the minutes as amended. And if there's any other changes.
Those for the July.
For July.
August.
Oh, okay, got it.
It's the other
Are there any changes to the August 17th minutes?
side.
Okay, so we did make a motion.
Can we get a roll call? So Raymond Mass.
Yes.
Eileen Hogan.
Yes.
Ken Euro.
Yes.
Sharon Lee.
Yes.
Vincent Light.
Yes.
Paul Canio.
Yes.
And Anna Cruz. Yes.
Okay, there are no resolutions. We'll go on to new business. I think 78 Bridge Avenue is.
Yes,
being
Sean,
carried.
that application for 78 Bridge Avenue is being adjourned, correct?
Yes, it's being carried to.
Okay, it says carried to September 21st, 2023, without the need for any further public notice. And I believe we received consent from the applicant's attorney, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if there's anyone here on the 78 Bridge Avenue application, that's American Opportunity Zone Fund, please come back September 21st at 6:30 p.m. You will not receive another notice. This is your notice. So please come back. And Mr. Chairman, just for record keeping purposes, we should have a motion to carry the American Opportunity Zone Fund application to the September 21st, 2023 hearing.
Make a motion.
Second it?
And you can just do it all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
And for the record, any opposed? No, okay.
Okay, we'll move on to 30 St. Nicholas Place.
Okay, as the applicant comes forward, we're just gonna do a couple real quick preliminary things. First and foremost, is there anyone here with any questions or comments or concerns regarding the notice they received? Okay, we don't see any, and let the record reflect that the zoning office and I reviewed the notice and found everything to be in order, so it would be my opinion, respectful opinion, that we have jurisdiction to proceed tonight. And what we'll do is we'll mark into the record what we as a board have before us. So we're gonna mark as A1 is the application and the intent to proceed dated June 23rd, 2023. A2 is the garage plans prepared by Michael Falzarano, and that's dated May 1st, 2023. A3 is the survey, and it's prepared by Leo A. Calieta, and that's consisting of 2 sheets, and we'll get that date in a moment. And A4 is Shauna Ebanks review memorandum dated September 1st. So what we're gonna do is we'll swear in Ed. Ed is our board engineer, and we'll also swear in Shauna Ebanks, our Director of Community Development. Ed and Shauna, do you swear that the testimony information you're about to provide, to the extent you provide any, will be the truth to the best of your knowledge to help you God?
I do.
Okay, and then why don't you can just give your name and address and we'll swear you in.
Mike Falzarano, 30 St. Nicholas Place in Red Bank.
Mike needs to be really close to.
Yeah, let me-
these, just move it close.
Is this better now? I got a push.
Closer.
Closer, you gotta keep it really close.
All right. Mike Falzarano, 30 St. Nicholas Place in Red Bank.
Okay, and if you could just raise your right hand, do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, to the best of your knowledge to help you God? Okay, and what I'm gonna do is ask you a few questions to get the ball rolling, and then you can present your situation and your case. So the property is located at 30 St. Nicholas Place, correct?
Yes.
And are you the owner of the property?
Yes.
And how long have you owned it, roughly?
Here.
And my notes suggest that there's a single-family home at the site? And do you live there?
Yes.
Okay, and is there an existing garage now?
There is not.
Okay, so why don't you tell the board about your proposal?
Yeah, so I am looking for an exception to the 8-foot variance on the rear of the property and the right side of the property, to make it 3 feet on each side, so I can put the garage in line with where the driveway currently runs on my property. And hoping that that still allots me a little bit of space in the backyard that I have for my family to, grow. We have a 1.5-year-old son. We'll hopefully have another one on the way, so if we were to stick with the 8-foot variance, that would effectively put the garage towards the middle of my property and kind of the space I have for my growing family. So the hope is that I can get the exception to 3 feet on both of those sides, to build a single car garage to provide more storage for my family, more protection for one of my vehicles in the backyard and in the garage itself. And put us on par with kind of the neighbors to the left and the right of us, as they have single car garages as well. So looking to add value to my home, the neighborhood, and Red Bank in general.
And then why don't you just, for the record, just if you can, talk about the size, the height, it's a 1-bay garage, I think, and
Sure.
is it attached, detached, and talk about utilities that you want to put in there.
Yeah, so it'll be detached, single car garage, 12 by 22. Will be under 16 foot in height, because I know that's the limitation, so I'm not expecting to go higher than that. And the only thing we will likely run through it is electrical, just for garage door opener, and maybe a light on the inside.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could, I think Sean, as your email, your review memorandum that we marked in as A4 had asked for information regarding an extension of the driveway. Or did you want information, or did I misread that?
Yes, I just wanted you to clarify whether or not you're gonna extend the pavement to meet where the new, garage will be.
Ideally, yes, within, whatever limitations are needed in regards to the driveway.
And we're gonna use pavement or pavers?
Likely pavement. The current driveway is pavement, asphalt. And that does already run to the back of the property, so. Which is a continuation of that.
And how long, just so that the record is clear, how much extension to the driveway are you adding
That's a good question.
roughly?
10 feet maybe?
And it's to the driveway length, not the width.
Exactly, yes.
Have you spoken to your neighbors?
Yes,
No problem, so everybody's okay with it?
yeah, I saw Sue yesterday and she had no issues with it, so.
Okay, any questions from the board for Mr. Calderano? Any questions from the public on this application? Okay, we'll close the public portion. Anybody like to make a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, at the risk of overstepping my bounds, I've written down some of potential conditions of approval. If you're gonna approve this, usually, again, doesn't mean anything, but you typically would say subject to all the promises and commitments and representations the applicant made throughout the public hearing, subject to outside approvals. Usually you put a 24-month shelf life on the approval within which to get the building permits. Compliance with Shauna's memo, which was A4, grading and drainage details, if necessary, to be reviewed and approved by the zoning office. I think typically per Shauna's memo, you wanted Shauna confirmation that the garage will not be utilized for living space. And then obviously with the extension of the driveway, I think the applicant said in accordance with the zoning regulations, so there's no lot coverage variance. So are those, if those are
I
acceptable?
think that's perfect, perfectly said.
Herman Maz,
Yes.
Eileen Hogan,
Yes.
Ben Euro,
Yes.
Sharon Lee,
Yes.
Vincent Light,
Yes.
Paul Cagnon,
Yes.
Anna Cruz.
Yes.
Good luck, thank you.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay, next we have 273 Shrewsbury Avenue, Mr. McKenna.
Okay, and as the Mr. McKenna and team come forward, we just have a couple of preliminary procedural things to address. So first up, I'll get my right page here. We're going to, for the second and final time tonight, we're going to swear in Shauna and Ed. Shauna is our Director of Planning and Zoning, and Ed Herman is our Board Engineer. Shauna and Ed, do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide, to the extent you provide any, will be the truth to the best of your knowledge to help you God?
Yes. I
do. All right, let the record reflect that both are sworn. And Shauna, there were no new plans or new pieces of evidence that we need to mark administratively, correct?
No, there was.
Okay, and last but not least, because this is a continuation, is there anyone here tonight that is not eligible, or all the members here eligible to vote tonight?
Chris was absent from that meeting, but he did listen to the recording.
Awesome, and we have a signed certification, or we will have one?
Yes.
Awesome, so we're gonna mark that as a certification that board member Haven reviewed the transcript or listened to the tape of the first meeting. And thank you for that. That's a very important job, particularly on these continued hearings. And it's not always the easiest and it's not always the most fun, but it is very important. So thank you very much for that. And again, so we'll mark that as B1, the certification. And with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. McKenna.
Excuse me, good evening, everyone, and members of the board. I just want to give you a brief recap of the last meeting and then address another issue.
So Ed, I don't think the mic's picking you up.
Speaking to the mic.
Excuse me, I'm a little bit worse. We call it the last meeting. We had-
And you gotta move it over in front of you. There you go.
It's high. Look at that rat's nest.
You recall we had engineering testimony that was concluded. We had, all that, traffic testimony that was concluded, however, discuss that in a minute. And then we had, architectural testimony that was concluded. One of the things that was addressed, however, during the meeting was the question of parking and loading. What we were able to do, and we advised the board at the time, that traditionally, we have to get local approval as well as county approval. What we were able to do was we actually contacted the county and we were able to secure a preliminary meeting with them that went incredibly well. What they agreed to do was to cut back. If you recall, the testimony of Mr. McCormick was that the county only requires no parking zone for 25 feet from the corner of any crosswalk. What exists now is 60.
I'm sorry, what exists now is,
60. So in the meeting with the county, we said we would like to have the benefit of the additional 35 feet for loading / parking. They were very receptive to it, indicated that as long as the Red Bank traffic officers and the Red Bank department would agree, that the county would be receptive to it, which was a major achievement as far as we're concerned for that particular issue. So if this application is approved, we have then have requested a meeting with the Red Bank traffic safety officer as well as the chief of police. And then Sean would attend the meeting and go over a plan that was acceptable to the Red Bank Police Department. And essentially the county said to us, as long as we don't have, meaning the county, have an objection to it and would be acceptable to us. But as logic requires, we have to get local approval here before we're allowed to make those applications. But I'm happy to report that, in fact, the head engineer from the county attended the meeting and gave us those notifications. So I just wanted to update the board as far as those that particular issue is concerned.
So you haven't talked to the local traffic safety?
They wanted us, they were willing to meet, but they said we want to get approval. Because frankly, they don't like to have those meetings. And I understand it. Please understand, this is why the county doesn't usually do it either. They can have 40 people making a request. They don't have any approvals yet. And then they go and get approved, but then the board requires something different than what they discussed with the applicant. So the traditional way, we've done this literally every single time. We're approved here, then we go to the Red Bank Police, then the Red Bank Police review anything that we propose. They either agree or suggest changes or whatever has happened. We've done it recently in 2 or 3 locations here in Red Bank and followed that exact same process. And then once the Red Bank is final on it, follows the county, then the county still has to review it because the county. So that's the process. But we're fortunate enough to have the county consent on in this particular instance, to give us a preliminary meeting, which they did, and which was very strongly encouraged by. And then they said, go back at your local approval, meet with the police, and then come on back. So
And I also just want to add that I did reach out to Chief McConnell regarding this, and they are okay. He's okay with what Thrive is presenting, and is in full support of giving a letter of support with their county application. So I just wanted to add that.
thanks.
Can I make a comment on this item now, or should I save it?
Just turn on your mic.
On the northwest corner of Parker and Shrewsbury, the detailing, the wrap business there frequently parks too close to Parker. And even with the yellow parking to the yellow, what it effectively does on southbound on Shrewsbury, which is a big issue now. I live in the immediate area. It prevents people from teeing up a right turn to Parker to go west, or it makes it harder to go around cars turning left onto Parker. So I would suggest that on the northeast corner where this building is proposed, that the space free for cars to move be longer than 25 feet. Because there's so much traffic going west on Parker at certain times of the day. You need really to tee up 2 lanes there. There is already a left turn lane, as you know. But the more space you have, the better to keep traffic flowing. So I would not give up if I were the board all 60 feet. I would give them 30, I would leave 30 or 35.
I think you bring up a good point, because frankly, there are about 4 spaces at that. That I have, where I can't get adequately.
Yeah, yeah.
From where I want to make the turn.
There's a few too.
No, it's just practical, and half the time, all happen. Right, that you're not gonna get.
Yeah, I've been meaning to write to the county to pull back the line to the telephone pole by the wraps shop. To make it easier to get, because that street has gotten so crowded in the last 5 years, but 60 feet you certainly don't need.
I mean, I don't think. I don't think that we need.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know that the county said we're okay with the 25.
Yeah.
I would suggest to you that on a local level, we probably can do that. But I can't tell you to meet with the police, but at least, we have things that are. On that note, the last witness that we're going for is our professional planner. That's Tony.
Excuse me, can I just ask a quick question before we move on? What exactly did you propose to the county? Is it gonna be a designated space just for that building, or is it open to the whole public?
Well, we didn't, what we said was, we'd like to have a load. That seemed.
They know it's not here.
They made changes to
The question is, if you're here, in another spot, is it gonna be open to the public or not? And then we're gonna defer to whatever the vote is, what we think. Should be on.
This is the exit.
That's good. I think we have to be sensitive to the fact that if we made it. It's not just a policy.
This bump out on
And
the
perhaps-
driving with this drawing.
I don't know what it means. That's the arrangement. But we really wanted to get the loading zone, the load in, load out of. Here.
This is me. Yeah.
I think this is just the left turn lane for this.
To have another waiting zone. So people can, the Amazon people.
This side.
That was.
Loading zone. Pickup zone.
Very pleased.
That's intersections of it.
I don't have the answer yet, but if I were to be asked, I would suggest that we probably want it to be a public space.
I'm sorry, I probably want it to be a,
Public space. And with limited parking, maybe it's gonna be an hour. Or something. Probably, but you can't.
Question, Mr. McKenna.
Yeah.
When you discuss loading zones, are we talking loading drop-off zones? Are we talking large loading zones, or are we talking Grubhub?
We're not.
I mean, because Grubhub might come inside the building to that, might be an interior loading zone, and there might be an exterior loading zone for larger vehicles that can't fit in there, or like Amazon trucks don't pull in and just pull up.
Yeah.
Did that come up as a
Yes, absolutely.
designation? Station?
Yeah, and so we wanted to not function for multiple purposes.
Does the county acknowledge those different types of uses that may go on all day long? Does the county acknowledge that as a function? I don't know anymore.
They're well aware. Yeah. I mean, frankly, Sharon, it's probably as productive a conversation as we can ask. And it's always been a concern of ours, but we had a substantial.
Sure, you're okay.
And
Are you okay with
I just,
brought us be able to come back to you. As far as we can go, I mean, we can't say things, we can't tell you things that I know are gonna be approved, but we're on there. Can't ask those things. Get a formal approval. Until we get.
Okay, let's hear from Mr. O'Neill.
I have a few,
Yeah. You know, I'll just swear you in to begin with. Just state your name and business address, please.
W. O'Neill Jr., 65.
All right, and do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the best of your knowledge to help you God?
I do.
And you're testifying tonight in your capacity as a licensed,
Professional fact.
thank you, and you know, just speak into the mic so that everyone can hear you, including the tape. Thanks.
Mr. O'Neill, we have some new members, so they might not be familiar with you. Will you give us your background?
I was gonna suggest that. No. I'm licensed planner and licensed architect, but I'm here today to speak at the licensed planner.
You're getting.
I've been licensed since 1988. Getting utility. Very back, I have a bachelor's degree in architecture and technology. Pennsylvania. Architecture planning program, in college and everything, so. You were retained by the applicant and accepted out into the. Used in order to typically, how this use would be considered as far as a variance of this. Yeah, and with people, we have to provide the testimony. As we all know, the property is in an NB zone, the business is in PR2 zone, which is business. They're looking for a use ordinance section 490-123A. The first thing to discuss is the nature of the issue of any project is that apparently that the use of benefits not only the client but also the community. Prior testimony of the proposals to provide housing and substitute services. The Jersey County has one of the highest rates of autism in the United States, 1 in 35 affected. The thing that really becomes important, and again, this was prior testimony, is that once one of these persons comes of adult age, most of their public services go away. And so these persons must be provided with safe, appropriate, practically accessible housing. The state will not do it. Without said facilities and resources, these persons are at high risk for involuntary displacement from their community, institutionalization, or homelessness once their parental support is removed. So if we think about the benefits are certainly being provided a safe place to live and become part of the community. It's a benefit to the parents who can leave adequate funding in their wills to have the person's care for them, even after they're gone. And if you also think about it, it benefits us. Because these persons fall into these categories of institutionalization and homelessness, they have to be taken care of. And we're the ones that will pay their bill. So this as a privately funded institution is inherently benefiting all of us by not getting our site, as was discussed, it's also extremely important for this facility. And the reasons are mass transportation access, I'll stop literally, station that's 6 blocks away. Job access, we can do this on Shrewsbury Avenue. Public park across the street. It's easily accessible to retail and service facilities north on Shrewsbury Avenue. It's able to like 4 or 5 places of worship. There is educational opportunity access from the bus that stops in the front of the.
You know, Andy, I think you're going in and out, so why don't you bring that mic and just.
Right, so that, maybe I should stop. So the bus that is in front of it goes right onto the campus. And Brookdale, as I know, has a lot of programs, and facilities for people. Last, we have the YMCA, which is also close by. So all of these facilities together make this really ideal location for persons with these disabilities. No, absolutely right.
When you look up inherently beneficial use, some of the municipal land use laws, everything that you just said is included in the law and criteria for determining whether or not it's inherently beneficial.
Absolutely. Now, there's another use variance, which is having a residential unit on the first floor. And was previously discussed was, again, it's inherently beneficial use, and therefore it has non-traditional service requirements that are used to help those people. One of those requirements is a residential navigator. This is a person that lives in the facility. And basically, as I kind of said to John, it's almost like when we're in a dormitory and there's an operator. It's somebody that's there all the time. To answer your questions, to help guide you, or do all the things that you take care of. They're there 24 hours a day. And they need to be on the first floor. The first floor is their access ability, so they have clear sight line, and then we'll go down. They have access to related facilities that help the people that take care of the on the first floor. Second and third floors are all residential units. Third floor is all support facility. It's a somewhat discreet location because sometimes residents need to meet with the navigator in somewhat private circumstances. The apartment's only 530 square feet. It's located on the Dr. James Boulevard side of the building. It has no door. The door is internal. So from the outside, you just see two windows. So nobody would even know it's a residential unit. There are activities that will go on in the accommodational spaces, which are on the first floor, and then the residential navigator there supervises things. When it comes to what the ordinance is really calling for, which is retail facilities, if you look at the papers that show on if you look at the exhibit C002.
No, let's mark them in. So, the first one is, marked C001, and what we're gonna mark that, I think, Shauna, we're at A21. And what is A21A?
That's setbacks from. And,
I'm sorry, say it again.
front setback.
Front setback and, right of way setback prepared by some architects. And is there a date on that?
I would say it's probably 9/6.
Of 23. All right, so we'll mark that as A21. And then there's another document you handed that's as sheet C003. We'll mark that as A22. And what is A22?
The bridge is the comparison of building heights.
Comparison of building heights, and that is prepared by your office.
Yes.
And is there a date on that?
And
9/6/23. Thank you.
then the third one is the one that talks about retail uses and ground floor within.
Now, let me. So, say it again, A23 is gonna be, what is that one?
The C002 is the survey of retail uses on the first floor study.
Okay. Prepared by your office, same date?
C002 are in orange. Really, the business zone, I'm not sure if they have any really ends of. Which houses you think but it really is something. Not having retail here doesn't disrupt. The other policy issue is for the section 442.9, which is the third reading. So two things. One is that the board, as Constance was reported earlier, and what's really allowed is 4 units above a non-residential use. And my other analysis is that that's 4 units per building. In one building, you're saying 4 uses, but you could actually make multiple buildings on the site, because it's multiple lots. We have up to 12 units in around density. So it's not quite as extreme as 33 to 4. The other thing is that, again, with an inherently beneficial use such as this, the resident population is again intellectually developed and challenged. And so we need to provide all these services for them to have them live fulfilling life, which is what the whole point of the project is. But in the nature of these services, there needs to be a minimum residential population to support all of those services. I've been told, based on financial performance, that 33 units is that number. If you then look at the impact of that, the residents will have a minimal impact based on parking because almost all of them can't drive. They don't have a driver's license. So what our earlier testimony from our traffic expert said was in their opinion, the amount of parking provided on site exceeds what we can park. So I don't see there being a negative impact. Also, the building fits within the height limits of the ordinance. It is 3 stories, it fits into the height limits. If you look at exhibit C003, in a couple of neighboring buildings that happen to be located on Dr. Spalding Boulevard, building, which is an office with one. That's 5. Only 2 stories, but each story like 18 feet high. Really the same height. Look at the buildings when inside. They're all within the stone's throws distance of this building. They're all either the same height or taller. The game design on Church across the street is actually significantly.
Let me just ask one other question, if you don't mind, it's related to density. In doing research, this particular project, but also historically in doing land use, one of the important uses, which pays essentially no attention to density, is rooming houses. And that's been strongly emphasized under the inherently beneficial use. One of them is rooming houses. Often you'll have many more than 33 people in structures such as this. Sometimes because they don't even necessarily have an apartment. Here, these are living quarters with a kitchen and a bathroom and a bedroom. Whereas in rooming houses, we don't need to go into depth on this one. Rooming houses, you have a room. And then you got universal bathrooms for the floor. Other facilities that are shared by everybody. Here, they don't have the ability to have their own space, so to speak. It's a much more desirable being cared for. Right?
Yes, yes. And if you really think about it, there's 33 units. So that means 33 people. Because they can't double up. So it's 33 people. So okay, it's 33 people. Now, if you think about what you think about 1-bedroom condominiums, if you just use like residential site improvement standard parking regulations, you need 2 spaces. So it assumes 2 people. If you look at a two-bedroom apartment, it's 2.5 feet. So if you approved on it, again, not you, but the approved a 10-unit, two-bedroom application a few years ago, and that could actually be between, if you don't know, like if it's 2 bedrooms, is it a couple and a baby? Is it, I mean, you could be talking about 20 to 40 residents. Even with only 10 units. So the 33 unit thing is kind of a misnomer because it's not number of units, it's number of people. That's the impact. So my opinion is the impact is the same because this is such a unique, inherently beneficial use. The last thing is that again, without things in the complex, you don't have the community that these people need to reinforce their integration greater. You can't just have 2 or 3 people. You have to have enough to have meetings and social events and things like that, so they can grow as a unit, as a community. That makes them stronger, makes it better for us, because it makes it stronger housing development for these people with these disabilities. There's also a D variance regarding the floor area regulation. This is again 490-142. And 1.75 is between 1.6 is proposed. So it is over the FAR, but there's a couple of things to look at. One is, what are some of the buildings around? So the AME Zion Church is about the same, 2.16. The Boys Club.
I'm sorry, 2.16?
2.16. Boys and Girls Club is approximately 1.86. The PS5 building is less because it has an extremely large rear yard. The building itself is between 21 and 22,000 square feet. I know there's a basement there, their office was there. So it's not as large as you would think. And another thing that counts against it is that if you look at the AME Zion Church as a comparison, in most ordinances, lot coverage and density are defined by building and parking. But in this case, because the parking is under the building, even though it's not usable space, it has only one wall, it counts against them as they are. It reaches 1.91 to 2.16. So if you discount the unique parking situation, which is being provided to reduce the impact of the neighborhood, it's actually completely in line with the buildings, mostly on top of the where the larger buildings are. There's also kind of and by the way, obviously we fit within the height, so it's not a visual issue. But the thing that's interesting is also that the ordinance requires a 15% unoccupied open space. Most of the buildings around it don't have. This project has 18.4%. So it actually exceeds the unoccupied open space, even though it exceeds the FAR. And I think it's really because of the way the parking is structured. There are a couple of C variances that I could discuss, and I'm not going to get into them too much. One is what Mr. McConnell was talking about, the parking loading space. I think I don't really see that as a detriment, considering what the county is willing to do. Excuse me, regarding that drop off there. The offices are there because of the residential property to the west. And I think the fencing and the extensive landscaping are more than adequate to buffer that. The front yard setback, which is the last exhibit, which is C001. The C001 yellow line, that's the center line of the road. The red lines are right. The line runs so most of the buildings are not set back 40 feet from the center line of the road. This building that exists is not. The building that is proposed will still
not meet the setback, but it's better than it is now. And then pushback is to be able to plant something in front of the building and soften it a little bit from the street. The lot coverage, again, lot coverage is an odd thing because I think Mr. Herman would back me up on this. Most times lot coverage in ordinance is about impervious and impervious surfaces. That's really wrong. But in the Red Bank ordinance, it's really about limited coverage. And again, we cover less because of that idea that we have more space than we do. Again, it's kind of an interesting thing because you look across the street at the AMC sign, I'm sure, again, I think it's a fine building. The other parking lot is a county benefit. Or it does because we have a roof on it. So it's kind of a, you know, if you look about density, it's about what's if we have more on the open space, we have the building that's smaller, shorter, that don't see the negative impact at all. Again, building setbacks, I think sometimes the ordinance gets in the way of itself. We're an urban area. It's an urban area, large suburban setback. Zones, having that setback, it's really more like a shopping center on a highway. We don't have that. So I think again, if you look at COO one, you'll see most of the buildings are right against the street. So when you go to municipal land use law, 40-55D2, the purpose of the act, this is supposed to be in the law, you know, why you would have these laws, what are you trying to attain in this legislation? If you look at item G, I'm gonna quote it. I'm gonna put emphasis on it, I think really hit the mark here. So the purpose of the municipal land use law is to provide sufficient space in the locations we talked about for a variety of agricultural, residential, recreational, commercial, and industrial uses and open space, both public and private, according to the respective environmental requirements in order to meet the needs of all New Jersey residents. All meaning these people with disabilities. And that's what's inherently beneficial about it. And then if you go to item D, it says the purpose of the law is to ensure that the development of individual municipalities does not conflict with the development and general welfare of neighboring municipalities, the county, and the state as a whole. And so this goes back to the inherently beneficial use of providing opportunity for people with these disabilities to be housed and cared for. So I think those two sections of the law are absolutely addressed in this application. And again, in the negative criteria, which is 40:55-70-52, looking at the positives and negatives, what's really going on here. I think we can kind of go through them rather quickly. Parking, according to our experts, we provide more than is needed. The height and bulk, we fit out of the neighborhood, we meet the ordinance. Setbacks and buffers, I think again, we meet the context of the area. I think the buffers are more than adequate. Accommodation of residences with special needs, which we obviously do. The unoccupied open space, trying to get close to the unoccupied open space, I think again is positive. I don't see that as inherently negative. And I think the social gains and financial impact, taxes and things like that are all a plus for the community.
Mr. Herman, do you have any questions or comments?
I think Mr. O'Neill outlined the various criteria, the information's in the review letter as well, so I believe he's met his burdens.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. O'Neill. Did you address, there's the ordinance about each dwelling apartment having a minimum of 600 square feet? And for the apartments are gonna have 575? I don't know if you spoke to that.
Yes, and a couple, yeah, I believe a number of units are gonna be greater than 600. One, I think a couple are over slightly over 700 square.
But 4 indicated as having 575.
Again, this is where I'm speaking also as an architect because I speak that. But I think that the 25 square feet is minimus and affecting the layout of the apartment. I think the apartments are moving.
I'm sorry, I don't think the mic is picking you up.
I'm sorry, I think the described 25 square feet is the minimus. I don't think it affects integrity, that's the layout of the apartment.
Mr. O'Neill, one thing as you were testifying about the density, the number of units, the sense of community, I can't help but think that this is akin to almost like a college dormitory in its approach with single units. I mean, is that a fair way to look at this? Typically, your apartments where density becomes an issue is, you have multiple people in a unit, for instance, you maybe have then the concern about additional cars. I think you've addressed the car situation as being somewhat unique. Any other development that you would have would have a significantly higher parking demand. Is that a reasonable fair assessment? So taken in totality, I think that maybe is a good way to review this, that this is a sense of community, the single nature. I don't know if you can speak to a typical college freshman dormitory, for instance, and what the square footage of a unit there would be. But you don't really need, this isn't like a studio flat where you'd want to have 1,000 square feet perhaps.
No, it's a different thing because again, there's only one person. That's a restriction of living there. There's a very small kitchenette. You don't want people, it's kind of like a dormitory. You don't want people to hide in the dormitory. And the college experience is to get them out and mixing with different people. And this is the same thing. You don't want them kind of cloistering in their room. You want them out in the room. So everything is done to get that out into the room. And part of it, I think you do it 5.
Any other questions from the board?
Okay. Mr. O'Neill, in talking about the density, you had mentioned something about the fact that there's a minimum residential population, some part of an equation. Can you say that again? I couldn't quite hear all of it.
Yeah, there's obviously a cost. Since this is a private development, there is a cost for providing all the services that are on the first floor, both in square footage and personnel. And so the number of units, the number of residents, there's a financial connection between the two.
I'm sorry, I'm still not following, because I'm thinking in terms of the services and the population, it would be better to have, one service navigator versus for 20 people versus 33. I'm not following your argument.
The argument is that if the costs are X for the services, the rents have to meet X.
Oh, so you would have to charge more per unit versus spreading it out over more units.
Exactly.
Okay.
Am I allowed to ask more basic questions about the project? I know some of this was contained in the hearing I listened to.
As long as there are questions he can answer.
No, it's not a question for the planner. It's a question for Ed or for the developers.
Who would it be for?
For Mr. McKenna or for the developer.
Hey, you can ask those questions.
Is the project is going to pay taxes to the town, I understand.
Yes.
To do something like this, and I formerly was involved in affordable housing for many years in the city. Is there capital subsidy here too? Donations, contributions by people to make this happen?
Yes, there'll be other.
Sort of a form of equity, in other words, to get it off the ground.
That's correct.
Yeah, but it has to be that you have to raise funds to make something like this happen.
There is enough money being put in to substantially carry this period of years. During that period of time, the prospect is, this has been discussed at length, that I will tell you, since the last meeting, I've had 9 phone calls. There is such a demand for this that, and this is not to impugn I applaud that this concept is out there, and if we're successful enough here tonight, then that this is gonna happen. But there is not gonna be a lack of demand for this. And there's the biggest problem we're gonna have is trying to narrow it down.
Yeah, no, I understand the demand is huge and it's way beyond what we can do here in Red Bank. What I'm asking is this project so expensive and difficult to pull off that you need private money to be given beyond what a conventional real estate investment would be? If grants and awards, no? I'm just curious. It's not really material, but.
Hi, it's Jonathan, sworn in.
Yes.
All right, so just state your name for the record,
John Klein.
and you were previously sworn, and you recognize you're still under oath. Thank you.
No, this project, we've met with a number of banks. They're very interested in financing this project, as well as personal funds for equity. And then we have a number of limited partnerships, including social impact funds. They're very interested in achieving social impact. Assuming a project gets approved and we go forward, this will create a model for other projects like this, not just in New Jersey, but throughout the USA. That's probably that's hope. But the testimony is, in fact, this is a private project funding Community Reinvestment Act money from banks. So
yes.
And I might add, as an aside, as I understand it, I haven't seen the paper yet, but this was actually in USA Today. That's the attention that's getting on the national level. And it is the hope of everybody involved that this will be a spark that will ignite similar thought throughout the United States. So we have a chance to be a leader in that capacity.
Once again.
Okay, any other questions from?
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it's directed to you or Mr. Klein.
We'll figure it out.
Right, but I just want to have you put on the record your affordable housing obligation and whether or not you're going to meet it. And then just your whole not the whole program, but just some summation of your program and working with our affordable housing consultants.
Absolutely, we're going to meet it, but we're hoping to exceed it.
well, let's deal with what is actually in the current plan. We have 5 units set aside. Will be as affordable housing units. We have a full plan that's been sent in to the Red Bank Affordable Housing Corporation. It's my understanding verbally. I spoke to Pastor Porter, been coordinating with him for months, but literally today, actually, and he said, I can state his words, but he's basically words. They agree with the plan. They agree with the plan. Let's put it that way. So once again, secondarily, hope. It's we are continuing to work on, since every resident effectively meets an affordable housing level of income, how we can, because it's such a new, unique type, how we can work within the affordable housing criteria and, knock on wood, effectively meet every unit would meet that criteria. I figured we may need some legislation changes for that. I don't think anything very extreme. But sometimes you have to have proof of concept for people to get it, and then they can see how this can help so many who need help in our community. So once again, let's make it happen. Today, 5 units meets the criteria, And then, sorry, and then there's the whole, keep pushing.
And those units are going to be staggered throughout the building in size and everything like that, and amenities, same for all.
The same for all. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm sure we have another question from Ms. Lee.
Do I look like I have another question? Red Bank has long been open to new ideas, pilot programs. And we spoke a lot about this program being a pilot program with the model coming out of the Arizona school. We'll just leave it over there because that's not the application. Are we allotting enough space, because you're hemmed in there, to provide the kind of services that your proposal would like to provide? We only have what we have. We only have what we have. I mean, we might like to take the some building over, but we have what we have.
I would like to answer yes. We have Karen Fluharty, our partner, who's been sworn in prior to this, discuss just the answer to that question. Absolutely. We have the first floor entirety for providing services to the residents, and I'll let Karen continue that.
I guess the question I'm asking is that the zoning board historically, as it supplies the need, tries to meet the needs of the residents of Red Bank. These will be new residents of Red Bank. Are we shortchanging them by not having substantial services for them in a campus, a full campus, as the other place offers? Is this something that you have in an outlook? I mean, I'm sure if some buildings came available, they might be picked up, but is this something that's on your plan or in your plan as far as growth? I'm not going to speak about growth nationwide. I'm just going to speak about growth in your position in Red Bank right now. We'll be working with.
It's an excellent question. Hello, my name is Karen Fluharty, and I am a co-developer of Thrive Red Bank, and also the founder of Parents for Plan 501c3 corporation. My son Ryan.
And just for the record, you were previously sworn at the last meeting, correct?
Yes, I was previously sworn at the last meeting.
You recognize you're still under oath?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Excellent. So to answer your question, I think there were a few questions in there, so I'm going to unpack the first one of is there enough room in the building to execute what we want to execute in terms of being new and a pilot and being innovative? We believe there is, based on all of that amenity space on the first floor. If the members of the board recall, during the last meeting, we had Dr. Christopher Menente here, and we've entered into the first public-private partnership with the Rutgers Adult Autism Services Center, and they will be providing our amenities. So we will have the teaching kitchen, we will have a health and wellness area, we will have game rooms, we will have a multi-purpose room and other amenities. So we feel that the footprint of the building is adequate to execute all of those. The second part of the question relative to the growth. As we know, Dale Community College is embarking upon a larger program to actually create specific programs for neurodiverse individuals for learning and independence curriculum. I know that they're building a specific building, but we have had a preliminary conversation about the Learn for Independence curriculum. So our residents have the ability easily with the bus right outside the door to go to Brookdale, and we can execute educational programs by using Brookdale Community College space and also the Rutgers campus, if that is an opportunity that we want to explore. Our goal is to serve Monmouth County. And as a parent, we have many of the parents here today in the audience, as you can see, and a number of young people that would be potentially our residents. So I'd like to thank them all for coming out. And again, so I think the building is adequate for what we want to do on this pilot and for our first project. It is our hope that this serves as a model that we can bring to other communities or potentially expand here in Red Bank. It's the first So we're learning as we go, but we've done a lot of research, a lot of background work. And feel that this space is optimum and the location is particularly optimum with the walkability and particularly lunch break and all of the other community programs in the area.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions from the board for Mr. O'Neill? We'll close that. Any questions for Mr. O'Neill from the public? Okay, we'll close that portion.
I guess it's for the record, Mr. Klein and Ms. Fluhar, if there's any questions from the public for them.
Okay, we close that session. I guess now we'll look for any comments from the board.
From the public?
I wanted to do the board first and then we'll do the public, because I think there's probably a lot from the public. I figured we'd get the board done first. If anybody from the board has comments?
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask, Mr. McKenna, are you complete with your
Yes,
presentation? No more witnesses?
no further witnesses. No.
So, any comments from the board on this application? If not, we will go to comments from the public on this application. Are there any?
Okay, come on up and we'll, Mr. McKenna, maybe you can, give us,
Okay,
all right?
get out of this chair.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Red Bank Zoning Board. I'm just gonna have you state your name and we'll swear you in to make this all legal. So, good evening. What's your name? Okay. And do you swear that the information you're about to provide will be the truth, the best of your knowledge to help you God?
I do.
Okay. And just state your last name one more time.
Cartier.
C-A.
C-A-R-T-I-E-R.
Perfect. Thank you. Have a seat.
Good evening. My name is Kitty Cartier. These passes where so I get how I can live independently. If I live here, I can walk to the gym, the cafe, see, and shop at the town. I can also cross the train station. I used to take the Amtrak from Washington to Central Park. When I was a student at George Mason University, I worked 2 jobs. I want to live independently. Please help me to help the families. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else from the public want to make a comment? Sir, come up.
All right.
That's the start.
You have a tough act to follow, but if you could just state your name and address, please.
My name is Mark Tabakin,
And spell your last name.
Tabakin.
Tabakin. Do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the best of your knowledge to help you God?
I do.
And I'm sorry, did you give your address?
I resident of Bradley Beach.
Thank you.
Owner of 331 New Circular.
Thank you.
So my name is Mark Tabakin. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you. I have one of my law offices here in Red Bank. I'm going to be here for 7 years come March, I believe. My law firm chose Red Bank because it offers a lot to be around. Places to eat, places to hang, and it's a really, really inclusive community. I'm not here because I'm a business owner of the community. I'm here because I'm Eddie Tabakin's dad. I sit on the board of directors of Parents with a Plan. We've been working really, really hard for a really long time to get to the position of being in front of you with an idea that we believe is long overdue. Red Bank has a rich history of inclusivity, whether it's No Limits Cafe, Y, lunch break,
Soul Kitchen, it goes on and on. We believe that Thrive is the next iteration of where this community should be going in its inclusivity. I'm the parent of 4 children. My wife and I are the parents of 4 children. And Eddie's our youngest, and Eddie deserves to have as robust, independent life as our other 3 children are having and enjoying. Thrive provides that opportunity to have a community within a building, to be part of a larger community, somewhere that he can work, that he can play, that he can eat, where he can spend his money, where he can spend his time, and live in an enriched life, the supports that he needs as an individual with intellectual or disabilities. That's the opportunity that we're asking for you to advance here. This is a first of its kind opportunity. There are no other options like Thrive out there. There is no opportunity where someplace to live that has a partnership with an institution like Rutgers University. That is a game-changing event. This is a cutting-edge, dare I say, state-of-the-art kind of concept to provide those with intellectual and developmental disabilities with an opportunity to live a robust, independent life. This is not a facility. This is not an institution. This is somewhere for people like you and me to live independently as possible. The options, we all know that the opportunities for those with the disabilities are marginalized. They are largely relegated to a life of isolation, living in the mom and dad's basement or in some other arrangement that is not robust. This provides an opportunity to give individuals the opportunity to be meaningful participants in your community, in our community. My community, I consider myself to be part of this community. And it's a worthwhile event. It is not going to have a negative impact on the neighborhood. The neighbors love the idea. Talking to them for, I don't know, a really long time. This is not a new idea. The neighborhood loves this idea. They're not afraid of the traffic because there's, relatively speaking, is not going to be the volume that I believe the fear is, or the concern, maybe not a fear, but the concern that exists with this board. I represent public bodies as part of what I do for my livelihood. I'm in front of boards of ed, I'm in front of communities and towns and county colleges, excuse me. Change is difficult, but it's necessary. And this is the kind of change that is so aligned with who you are as a community. Just the next day, the next step. If asked me to please consider these variances favorably, grant us the opportunity to try to do that. We can do that. We'll do that.
Great, thank you very much.
Well, it kind of looks like we don't have any objectors here tonight.
And if we do, I'd like to hear from one, but if we're not, if somebody else wants to come up,
Okay, if you could just state your name and address, please.
It's Jane Kleiman and it's 68 Wallace Street, and I live here in Oak.
All right, if you could just, you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the best of your knowledge to help you God. Thank you.
Can you spell your last name? I'm sorry.
Sure, it's KLEIMAN.
Thank you.
So I'm coming before you today as a Red Bank resident and also as a parent of a child with autism and developmental disability. And I am in full support of this residence, and not because my son will ever be able to live there. My son is much more severe and profound in his disability to be able to live independently in a one-bedroom apartment. However, the steps that need to take place are this project in order for communities to see our adult children in the community as human beings with dignity and not parent cases that, you know, we're doing something for. We are in a crisis of housing that's coming up. We have provided services for our children up until 21, And we have neglected to provide services for the post-21. Services is one thing, and housing is out almost non-existent. And the way that the funding from the government, from the federal government and the state, and the way that that is all set up is designed to put people into group homes with 3 or 4 people that they don't know in some random suburban neighborhood with people who get paid $17 an hour. If that's not institutional, I don't know what is. This is a community. This is living a life that everyone in this room is entitled to, including our adult children. We are not going to be around forever. And I can tell you as a parent that the thing that keeps me up at night, and that is my deepest fear, is who is going to not only take care of my son when I'm no longer here, but who's going to care about him? Who are the people who are going to be around him that know him, that know his needs, that know his personality, that know what his interests are, and that are going to work to help him navigate the world in the way that he can. And that's what this project is all about. And Red Bank has an absolutely golden opportunity to become a innovator in this kind of a project. And once community, I mean, to be frank, I think there should be one of these in every team. And once people start to see this happen, it's going to be less and less difficult to make it happen in more and more communities. And then finally, someday, I don't know if I'll still be alive, but you know, there'll be hope for parents like myself and the parents, other parents in this room who have basically spent our children's entire lives dreading this moment when their adult children can no longer live with them, or they're too old, or God forbid one of your parents dies and you are now placed in emergency care. This gets rid of all of that. This is a place for people to have a life with dignity and joy and community and inclusion, and just be part of a community, which basically everyone of us deserves. So I wholeheartedly encourage you to improve this project. And as a Red Bank resident, not to mention, nobody's really brought up FRA, but FRA is, I came before this board to speak in support of their move from, I guess it was Shrewsbury on Haddon Avenue to their new home on Newman Springs Road. We have a history of doing the right thing by this community, so I hope that continues. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening. If you could just state your name and address
Joyce DeJean.
and spell the last name.
Sure, E-B, capital J-O-H-N, and I reside at 24 Holly Street. And
All right, do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the best of your knowledge, so help you God? Thank you.
just also here to share my support of the project. I live in Rumson, but I've lived in the area my entire life, and I've been in nurse for 25 years and spent over 20 of them working here in Red Bank, 15 at Riverview, and another 7 at Parker Clinic, which is up the road. So also Red Bank has this history of seeing potential, and boy, is this a population with potential. I am also daughter of a special ed teacher and mother of a young man with autism. And as has been previously stated, 21, usually such a magical age for us, strikes fear. So this population has grown, obviously, and they've also benefited from, my mother became a special ed teacher in the 70s, at the beginning of the institutionalization. And care how far we have come. And so here we now have individuals who have had all of this wonderful early intervention and therapy, education, and they're ready to go. They want to work. They want to live independent. My son talks about having an apartment in Red Bank as his dream. at the age of 25. And guess what? This happens, he'll be here. So, yes, for any questions, concerns, fears, that may be out there, I think this team has done an amazing job of presenting this and showing, we all have something to learn from this, and I think this week is an amazing addition. So please, thank you.
I'm sorry, I just missed your address.
I'm sure, 24 Holly Street, Rumsey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. If you could just state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Mark Barnier. My address is 9 Chestnut Hill Lane in Lancroft.
Okay, do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the best of your knowledge to help you God? Thank you.
Want to say thank you to all of you on the committee. A lot of nights you probably come up here and there's things you might have to say yes to or no to, and probably walk out of here sometimes thinking what a thankless job this could be. I'm here to tell you that tonight you do have the opportunity to approve something that is meaningful and that is thankful, that I hope will give all of you a lot of gratitude for passing this. My wife Stephanie and I are the founders of No Limits Cafe. We founded that probably for our daughter Katie, to let off, but we also founded it because as a parent of a child with an intellectual developmental disability, when you first find out your child is first diagnosed, you have two questions that you ask yourself. And these questions come back again and again. And those two questions are, where can my son or daughter work when they get older? And to Jane's point, where can they live? And if you think about this, 1990, 33 years ago was when the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed. And in some ways, it makes us think about how far we haven't come, because the opportunities for employment and the opportunities for housing are so limited. Numerically, I think a number was thrown out when we were here last meeting, that within I think it might have been a 30-mile radius or 50-mile radius, very small area, that there are over 6,000 young men and women who would immediately qualify or could immediately live in a building like this. This has 32 spots. So what that says is that 995 out of 1,000 have no option, which is really a sad statement for where things are. However, I think that what we've seen in some ways with No Limits is that when the opportunity and people see it and feel it, and it's visible and it's tangible, it changes people's minds, it changes perceptions, and it changes the way that the world moves forward. When I came to the first meeting, and I have to go on my phone because I want to make sure I get the quote right. One of the things that it said that both Mr. McKenna and everyone who testified needed to provide to the board was a substantial benefit to the public good. And when I look at this program, I look at the opportunities for empowerment. When I think about things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, there is dignity that comes with that, and there's empowerment that comes with that. The ability to live on one's own, the ability to take care of oneself should never be underestimated. And it should be something that is critical for every man and woman. This population, as we've gone from institutionalization and institutionalizing individuals to a world where we become much kinder. And when I think about what the next step is, what the next evolution is, it's empowerment. One of the most empowering things is to give a man or woman the opportunity to live on their own, the opportunity to make their decisions, and even have the opportunity of the dignity of risk. Okay, you didn't do your laundry, this didn't happen. Guess what? That changes our lives. And we live in a world where barely one of us goes home or lives and walks around and says, I don't have a friend or a neighbor or a sibling or a cousin or an aunt or an uncle who has someone with an intellectual disability. It is so prevalent in our world. And so for these men and women to have this opportunity and then to share that and to show that and to showcase that everywhere, locally, nationally, and throughout the state is tremendously empowering. And so tonight, I thank you guys for what you're doing. And I also, again, I hope that this passes, and I hope that as you walk out of here tonight, compared to some other nights where it might not be a friendly meeting in here, I hope that you walk out of here and recognize the fact that what you're doing makes a difference, not just today, but for the entire, for a generation or more. Thank you very much.
I think everyone on this board, I know myself, I have friends that have children with disabilities that are still living home and would love to get out. I'm sure everybody on this board knows somebody who's up against that. And I know from my point of view, this is a great thing, and I'd be the first to say I'd make a motion to approve this.
I'd like to second it.
Raymond Mack? You know, hold on, I'm sorry. Can I just do a couple real quick things?
Absolutely.
Just in general, just real quickly. So obviously, I know we've got a lot of new members, and just very briefly, there's a bunch of different standards. And just for the record, we're going to say with the use variance, you typically need the positive and negative criteria. And the positive, you talk about fulfilling the purposes of the municipal land use law, and Mr. O'Neill spoke about that. And that's generally called the positive criteria. And the negative criteria is, did the applicant prove to you that the application can be granted without causing a substantial detriment to the public good? Now, we have a little bit of a twist on that. So normally with a use variance application, you have the positive and negative criteria. Mr. McKenna and Mr. O'Neill talked about the term inherently beneficial use. And basically, I'm reading from the New Jersey Zoning and Land Use Administration book, and it says the concept of the quote inherently beneficial use was judicially created to deal with a relatively narrow range of enterprises so universally considered to be of community value that municipalities should be favored towards their inclusion. And it talks about, even though the concept was judicially created, was thereafter codified in statute, NJSA 4055D-4, and it determines that inherently beneficial is a use which is universally considered of value to the community because it fundamentally serves the public good and promotes the general welfare. Such a use includes, but is not limited to, a hospital, school, child care center, group home, or a wind, solar, or other similar energy facilities. So if in the context of your discussion, you feel inclined, you can say that you believe it is an inherently beneficial use or it's not. And just so you know, the concept or the impact, if you find it to be an inherently beneficial use, the law basically presupposes that if it's an inherently beneficial use, the applicant automatically satisfies the positive criteria, and then you just have to go to the negative criteria. And just for the record, I believe in the recent past, and Sean and Ed can correct me, I believe we have found lunch break to be inherently beneficial. And at one point, I think we found Parker Family Health Clinic to be inherently beneficial. That does not mean you have to find it here. I just wanted to give that for context. The other thing, we have standards about, there's different standards for the FAR, the floor area ratio, and there's different standards for the density, which generally for the density and the floor area ratio, it is, did the applicant prove to you that the site can accommodate what they're proposing, notwithstanding they do not meet those technical requirements. So that's just that. So those are the standards. And now the hard part comes for the US board members to integrate those facts, and the facts presented and the testimony presented within those standards. And that's presumably, if you find that they satisfy that criteria, you will presumably vote for the application, or conditionally approve the application. And or if you don't feel that those standards have been satisfied, presumably you vote against the application. And then I would just suggest, if the application is going to be approved, we would make it subject to a few things. Number one, subject to all the promises and commitments and representations the applicant's development team made throughout this public hearing. So what that means is if they said it, they have to mean it, and it's a condition. We would also say, if it's acceptable, and if I may, subject to the terms and conditions of the T&M Associates Review Memorandum, subject to those affordable housing, Sean was excellent in pointing out, subject to our affordable housing regulations, contributions, and deed restrictions, and have the affordable housing application or affordable housing elements, all elements of it, size of the units, number of units, location of the units. We're still with Leslie London.
Yes.
And so those have to be approved, obviously subject to all the applicants obtaining any and all necessary outside approvals. And we usually have a caveat that says if Mr. McKenna, as a result of those outside approvals, something materially changes, got to come back. We usually have a 20, we'll put a time frame. We have, let's see, do we need lot consolidation? I think that was in your, if it's in your review letter, we'll do that. Demolition plans if necessary, compliance with the the prevailing ADA regulations. If it's approved, Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen of the board, you typically, in similar circumstances, when you have approved, and again, I don't know if you're approving or not, but you have typically, when you've approved use variance applications, you've limited it to what I call the intensity regulator based upon the specific testimony and information that was presented regarding the intensity of what's proposed, the number of people, the number of units, and all those, why you went to so much detail about what goes on during an average day here, and who's going to be there, how many people are going to be there. So those are the things that you basically say, we're basing the approval based upon that testimony, which Mr. McKenna is a normal, typical condition. And basically compliance with and those regulations and those restrictions and those limit testimony and evidence presented would be applicable to all successor owners, operators, managers, operators, and the whole bit. Ed, do we need a developer's agreement, or just if the Borough Council requires it?
I would say the latter.
Okay. And then, Mr. McKenna, just for the record, if this application were approved and the appeal period successfully expired and building permits are issued, is it your intent that the prior approval of which you referenced would be formally abandoned?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, and that's the reason we say that you sort of, for obvious reasons, you don't want two competing approvals out there. And Monmouth County Planning Board approval, and let's see. And I think is this private garbage collection?
Yes, it's private.
Okay. And any infrastructure improvements, or is that something that would be, if it's addressed, would be in the developer's agreement?
Yep.
Okay. And then Mr. McKenna, just real briefly, and we're talked about the on-site management, and I won't go into the details, all the things that we talked about, but just what is the requirement in terms of the that loading zone that you talked about at the beginning tonight? What is the technical condition? Is it you're going to pursue it in good faith?
Yes, we're gonna pursue it in faith. We have. Well, we'll come on show it tomorrow, and set up the meeting with the Red Bank people, and then
Okay.
we go back.
And again, there is a whole bunch of conditions. I won't go through them if we don't need to, in terms of all some technical conditions. But just for the record, Mr. McKenna, are you okay with those conditions and the other conditions that came up during the public hearing process?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for stealing your thunder, but are those conditions acceptable to the board if the board is inclined to approve it?
Thank God we have you. It's fine with me.
Okay.
Kevin, one thought, and maybe this was kind of where you were heading with your initial opening statement there, but this, the testimony and the approval here tonight was very specific to this use. Similar cases where if you had another permitted use or something, I would suggest that any deviation from the intent of the use should necessitate a revisit to this board if something is significantly different from, you know, what's testified to here.
I think that's an excellent point, and that's what we sort of call this the intensity regulator. If the application is approved, we're gonna call it A. Everything that the applicant's team, we're gonna call that A. And if they try to do A times 5, or they try to do B, that's an issue. But that's, again, and that's consistent with all of our approvals that we have.
Okay.
So cool.
Brilliant.
And I guess just there should be some discussion as, do you think it's an inherently beneficial use? And if it is, you know, you can say that. And if you don't think it is, you can say that. Okay. So your motion is to identify this as an inherently beneficial use?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Roll call?
Do we have a second? I'm sorry.
Yes,
I
Sharon.
started talking, so I.
Okay, Raymond Mass?
Yes.
Ben Euro?
Yes.
Sharon Lee?
Yes.
Vincent Light?
Yes.
Paul Cagnon?
Yes.
Anna Cruz?
Yes.
Eugene Horowitz?
Yes.
Oh, great. Motion to adjourn.
No, we have to approve the actual. Was that enough, Kevin? I mean, I know. But to approve it as a amendment.
Kevin, yeah, I didn't know if that was.
Approve the application in general.
Approve the application.
To approve the application.
Initially, I made a motion.
Yes.
But I'm sorry, but Paul has something?
I think it's an inherent, I agree with the first part, but the application I was gonna vote no on.
Okay, so you thought that was just on the inherently beneficial? Okay,
So we gotta vote on that.
yeah. So that was a vote 7-0 on the inherently beneficial use. Now, for the request of the member, and I think it's a good idea. We should have a separate vote to approve the application, subject to all those conditions that we just talked about. Saying, yes, it is an inherently beneficial use, and now it is, are you going to approve the application? So we should have a motion on that.
I'd like to make a comment. I was originally concerned with the density problems with this application. But after hearing the testimony and seeing and knowing that there's only going to be one resident per unit, I don't have a problem with the density. So after saying that, I just want to say that I'm fully support this application.
Are you making a?
No, I just wanted to make that comment.
I'll make a motion to approve the application,
Subject to the conditions.
subject to Mr. Kennedy's condition.
Second.
I'll second.
We did, Eugene? Okay. All right. Raymond Mass?
Yes.
Ben Euro?
Yes.
Sharon Lee?
Yes.
Vincent Light?
Yes.
Paul Cagnon?
No.
Anna Cruz?
Yes.
Eugene Horowitz?
Yes. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So adjourn.
Any business?
Adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, so.
I.
Thank you.